ready to start?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. So I see another Buccaneer. They seem to be pretty
Another
popular.
Buccaneer.
Yeah.
I know. Dude, I literally saw your 251 progression session with the last Buccaneer like
Uh-huh.
a day ago, and I'm like, oh crap. There's a lot of Buccaneers going on, which makes sense. They're really strong after Destiny and everything. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
yeah.
think we had like a week where we did like 3 Nightwalkers suddenly. Somehow it just clusters sometimes. It
That's
happens.
cool.
Yeah. Don't feel too bad about it. You play what you want to play, and I've been on the Hyperburn on the Buccaneer, and you just zoom through the map. It's kind of addictive. I get it.
It is. It is. I was originally so as you scroll through the pictures, you'll see. But my first character in Reboot 2015 was a Night Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back in 2020, and I say came back in quotation marks because it was coming, playing for a month, leaving, coming back, playing for a month, leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I never really started until 2021, but I picked up my Night Lord, and that was my main for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then Destiny came out. I didn't like the revamp, and that's when I created a Buccaneer because I didn't even look at what Buccaneer got. I just saw Lord of the Deep was pretty cool.
Yep.
That's how
It
I
is.
ended
Yeah.
up there.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's how I'm here right now,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much.
Okay. And so the Buccaneers been going well. See, you've hyperburned a DA. You were like
I did.
Walmart Lord of the Deep is pretty cool too.
I thought that was pretty easy. To be honest, I saw your Buccaneer, your DA, and I'm like, this is actually pretty fucking neat. And I
Mhm.
needed to do it anyways because of the Lincoln Legion. And then I
Yeah.
just had fun training it. Like the shields weren't that bad. I, you know,
Yeah,
wasn't
it's about,
terrible.
about as much as you could say. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Wasn't the worst thing in the world,
It has decent burst too. Like
Mhm.
I've blown up CRA right now pretty regularly with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, should be doable. And your DPM is pretty decent if you can stay in frenzy and position yourself properly. You just keep chunking.
frenzy, that's one of my biggest problems. I have to end up constantly. I don't know. I guess I should watch your hard Lotus attempt with your DA.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I'm supposed to like be turning frenzy on and off depending on what scenario I'm in.
Yeah, it depends on the boss and how confident you feel. Especially for me, I have the Rune 4 shield on, which gives me 25% extra final damage received, right? So if I'm not in Frenzy, I'm getting hit harder than when I'm in Frenzy. But your base HP is higher, so you have to know which things can hit you and which things are not allowed to hit you. You die faster to the things that can kill you, but you have to just dodge better, basically. It comes down to timing and knowing how long do attacks take to hit you, and when do you really have to move out of the way, and when can you kind of overstay. So it comes with practice, and ideally you stay in Frenzy the whole time, but yeah, I should probably be staying in Frenzy pretty much most of the time on Vihela as well, but that has healing blocked, so I feel pretty spooky there. I think if you solo, you have more control over that boss fight as well, whereas if you're partying, bosses can go all over the place, right? And then it becomes very spooky if you're walking the tightrope on HP. You don't know where the boss is going. That adds risk that you might not want to take on.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
practice, yeah.
Cool. I'll definitely do that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean everything's been gelling pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I got this character all the way up to about 25k strength. Particularly my Buccaneer.
Mm-hmm.
And my guild was like, "Hey, we're starting to form hard lucid, hard will parties," and I thought I was not even close to going to those bosses.
Yeah, people throw out those requirements of like multiple trillions of bursts and stuff, but yeah, those are really some old numbers that are no longer necessary because of how strong everyone's base stats are now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I stopped playing in 2020 and waited until Destiny came out is because my Night Lord had no meso or drop gear, and I was just burning totems with it, and I got all the way up to 240 something with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the max I'd ever gone from like meso farming with it without any drop gear was like 2 bill in like a whole couple, I think it was 2 or 3 months that I played it.
Mm-hmm.
And a Star Force event came out, I think it was a 5, 10, 15, wasted all my money, barely got anything, got really burnt out. I'm like, all right, taking a break. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, you
And
get to the point where you're expected to just have either larger sums of money or get lucky. And of course you can't count on getting lucky because that's the exception. So the only way to really go past a certain point is kind of brute forcing your way with backups and with cash. So setting yourself up to having a decent income is definitely an important part of the game the further you go. And you can definitely feel to an extent that you get railroaded into waiting for events and not really being allowed to upgrade until there's an event going on. But in a way, I find it kind of soothing because I know that that's going on in the background. So I'm like, okay, I don't really have to worry about upgrading right now. I can just do my weeklies, pile on resources, and then when an event comes, then I can start deciding like, okay, what is the next upgrade to make? But when you're still in the build-up phase towards that, your money's probably better spent on your character, right? Because it'll repay itself faster than waiting for the next event. But the downside is you don't have the backups at that point, so the risk is higher.
Okay.
So you gotta, yeah, it's all about trying to find that sweet spot between like, do I risk it here? And I find that the calculators just help a lot for that, and just look at the numbers and be like, is this an acceptable risk for me? Most of the time, I'm very risk averse personally, so a lot of times for me it's like, nah. But what helps is having, for example, like a really broad foundation in the Legion, right? Because then every character has a lot more wiggle room to be like, you could just wait a little bit more. Or having really solid weapon, secondary, and emblem potential. That way you can already force a lot of space for yourself. And of course, any kind of access you have to nodes. Those are all like the more invisible, quote-unquote, damage sources, right? That don't really show up in your damage range. But that will make your character do a whole lot more damage. And yeah, you have so many options, so yeah, go for it.
Do you think that I'm at the point with my Buccaneers v Matrix right now to be sending down nodes to my Night Lord and Demon Avenger? Do you think I'm at that point, or do you think I should, get Maple Goddess up, get loaded dice, and overdrive? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were talking about going for the Hard Lucid, Hard Will parties, right?
Eventually. Well, right now, my guild has me in. So I can clear those two pretty regularly now, pretty easily. I'm at 32k. My party will just blow them up I think it's less than 30 minutes. We're doing both bosses. But eventually my Night Lord, my Demon Avenger, now that I know that like 25k is kind of that point where I can start considering going into these parties, BA dependent, I kind of want to start getting those two characters prepped as well.
Yeah. I mean, you get like once you get your pieces, and maybe you have like a backup here and there to start like tapping up to 19 or something. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to get even more pieces here if the party doesn't like need your damage, right? Or what happens with people, the parties tend to like break up into like 2 or 3 man parties, and then you just take like 3 people along from the guild kind of thing. That maybe they barely meet the requirements. They're not going to be able to put their measure of damage in just because the bosses are too fast for them to do that. But in the same way, you can, kind of speed up the process, plus get a higher chance for your pitch drops between the people who are doing all the damage, kind of thing.
Okay.
Depends on what kind of situation.
Looking at how my V Matrix looks like right now, do you think I'm at a good point to just kind of chill on the Buccaneer and start sending nodes down to them?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Goddess Blessing and the Overdrive probably mostly important if you're soloing the harder bosses. So if you would go from where you are now towards like doing Hard Lotus and Hard Damien solo, because especially with Hard Damien, right, he's in the air a lot, so you want to make sure that when he's on the ground and you're binding him, that you can optimize full damage on his ass. Otherwise, the run just takes forever. Lotus is a bit less bad as long as you time your attack, like go right after a purple ball phase. And teleports every now and then, but it's not too bad. But Damien can really just go out of range for the longest time. And you can kind of like up jump next to him and have Lord of Deep hit, Damien a little bit, but those yellow balls are there, so it's kind of spooky.
Okay. Cool.
So I would say that's fine. But the main metric I would say is always like, if you're in the party, and you feel like the party's going smoothly and everyone's, the bosses are being killed properly, and if there's no immediate pressure, like if your party was like struggling, you were like sometimes failing and having to double run, then I would say it's definitely like Goddess Blessing and Overdrive could definitely help you make your burst better in that phase 3, and that could make the difference between a party failing and succeeding, right? But if your party is having absolutely no problem right now, then I would say like, why take that luxury position that you have and roll with that. And then you can always circle back later to finish these things off if you're trying to do like the harder bosses, or there's a smaller party and now you feel more pressure and you want to carry more of the weight, then you still have something to work on then. Cause I like not maxing everything out immediately, because I like to see if I can just do it as it is, and then if I can, and then I finish upgrading stuff, I can always circle back and still have something to work on and to upgrade and keep something, you know, as a last resort kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. No, that's good. I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at the positioning of your character, like what content do I want to do with it, right? And can I do that content with it? And then you're good. And if you're trying to build up to next content, then you need to kind of do a check, you know, like do a test run, do like a duo run, see where you're at, and then use that to kind of gauge, do I need to invest more or less? Because you did mention stat specifically, and stat is definitely a big indicator, but it's not the only indicator, right? So just because your character's 25k stat doesn't mean it's going to be able to carry its weight. And like you said, like those nodes are very, very important. Those levels of those boost nodes and those skill nodes, the more you're going to like hard lucid and hard will, that's when, you know, most of the time, that's when your boost nodes are pretty much maxed, right? But that's when your skill nodes are going to start to really need to take some extra effort. Specifically, you know, some characters more than others, but your skill nodes are going to be more necessary to make sure that those bursts really count. And then when you're, you know, yeah, the easier bosses in the soloing, it's more the boost nodes and it's more the DPM that's more important there.
Gotcha. I don't think I'm anywhere near soloing.
Mm-hmm.
I died out of Hard Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
I think I tried it last week. I died out of it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. You got through phase 1 or no?
I got through phase 1. Phase 1 was easy. It's just the same. I felt like it was just a little bit more HP, but I couldn't make it past phase 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's just too much stuff dropping?
Too much stuff dropping, and I feel like I don't have very good hands. So
yeah, it'll take practice for sure. Yeah, I'm not the best at that either. What I find that helps a lot is to do smaller movements and just stay close to the boss and start there. So I would almost advise to, like, for the beginning of phase 2, just stay really close to him and just use your regular is it a corkscrew, like the regular dash basically? It's a decently small range, right? And basically just use that. Just whenever you see just stay close and you see him pushing in your direction, then just corkscrew behind him and corkscrew behind him. Just only do that basically while looking at the ceiling and trying to get a good feel for like the timing of when you see debris particle in, when you see it start falling, and then it's man, I feel like everyone should play this game. There was this old. Do you know Mr. Game & Watch?
The only thing I know about Mr. Game & Watch is that he was a Smash Bros. Character.
Yeah, exactly. But he was in those like really like flat 2D world games, right? You have that one stage in Super Smash where you have like the brownish outline with the red buttons, and then you have like a world where he sometimes appears, right? So there's this game that's called like I think it's just called Fire, and there's like an apartment building on fire on the side, and there's 4 spawn locations, and you have 3 locations in the middle where you are basically his upbeat his recovery skill. Does that make sense if I say that, right? Like you can bounce him like off of a tarp, right? Like 2 firemen.
Let me see it.
And there's a
little trampoline.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a fire truck at the end, like on the right side. And what you have to do is like people bounce down, and you have to like bounce them and get them into the fire truck in like 3 bounces. But they come at different times and they bounce at different speeds. So you constantly have to figure out like who has to be hit, bounced first and who has to bounce second, because you can't drop anyone on the way there. So you're like constantly bouncing. But I think this is a really good practice on like seeing like what activates when and what is priority here, like what needs my attention first and what comes second. Because that's really the practice that you're getting when you see like 6 things falling from the sky. They very rarely all fall at the same time. If they do, you dash the fuck out of there. But if you don't, you can stay pretty close, and that way you can optimize your damage by a lot. And of course, the stuns can really hurt you, so I would advise going with more like utility link skills, especially get that Cygnus Blessing in there just to get a little bit shorter stun duration, right? Okay. So you can lower the chances of just getting stun locked into oblivion, because that will definitely happen. For me, the big thing that made Hard Lotus a lot easier was starting Black Mage, because once you start Black Mage, it's like there's so much stuff going on in like that phase 3 that Hard Lotus just becomes a cakewalk, because it's like, oh, there's like nothing going. You have so much time to respond to everything compared to Black Mage, because it's so much faster that you have to respond to everything, or you just get punished so hard. So for me, it was like turning it up to a 12, so I can turn it back down to a 9 on Hard Lotus, and then that felt doable. But yeah, it's practice, and it's definitely just start with like small movements and with like a low amount of controls, and then like build it up as you feel like you have the basics under control, I would say.
Okay. I didn't realize that that's what Cygnus Blessing did. Reduce the stuff. Stuff like that.
It's called status resistance, right? So if you look at your stat window and you hover over the status resistance, the higher it is, the more you'll see like a percentage reduction in the duration of hard statuses like stuns.
Is there an ideal amount that I should have when I'm going into?
Yeah. I think as long as your reduction is around like 56, 57%, around there. It's pretty class related though, because some characters will just have like 100 or 200 in their kit, which is just way more than some people can get. It's very limited on how much you can get. Like there's a little bit in your traits, I believe. I think in willpower, if I'm not mistaken, and then basically the Cygnus Link, and that's pretty much it. So that's like what you can tap into just to get a little bit extra. But yeah, in the past it was like on a scale to 100. If you ever reached 100, you just had 100% reduction, so you just be immune to some stuff. But they changed that to be like on a logarithmic scale. If you look at the logarithmic scale, it's actually ridiculous. Like someone who has 400 will have maybe like 61% reduction, and someone who has like 100 will have like 58% or something. Like it barely goes up. So it's almost impossible to really get past a certain point. So yeah, you don't want to like overstack or anything. It's not gonna do much, But the little bit might be just enough to just get out of the way of the stun, right? And then because you have plenty of dashes, you're just spamming your dash, and whoop, you get out of it. And that would be the difference between dying and just fighting and living to fight another day.
Okay, cool. I didn't realize that was a thing. Sweet.
Yeah, it might be just enough.
Cool. So I would like to ask you a question about my IED and my familiars and my hyperstats and how that all ties in.
Sure.
So I posted a picture when I hit 30k stats. I posted a picture onto the Buck Discord, and someone mentioned, "Yo, why do you have 15 points in IED on your hyperstat?" I'm like, "Well, I thought I needed to get to 95 visual ID for Hard Lucid." I didn't respond. I just let it go. But in my mind, I was like, I thought I needed 95%. Shortly realized that that's probably not true. That I don't need 95% because I think I get IED from having the max boost nodes, right, or something like that.
Yeah, so when it comes to IED, so what I like to talk about is functional IED. So that's basically how much IED is being applied on hits. So that takes into account specific skill buffs, and that takes into account boss debuffs, right? So if you have some classes might have a major, like you have a Demon Avenger, right? Or you have a Night Lord. Night Lord has the the charm, right? Did you put with the hyper skill, you can make it apply to bosses, right? The Frailty Curse, that one?
Yep. And then DA has the green slash.
Yeah, the Nether Slice, yeah. And that's a debuff on the boss, right? So those are both 30%, I believe. So when you have 90% IED in your stat window, or you have like 92%, whatever, and you hit that boss, you're not applying 92% because that skill might be boosted. Like you said, you might have a debuff, that debuff that we're talking about. You might also have the debuff from like Explorer Mages, right? So what actually is hitting the boss is more IED. So that's the functional IED that I talk about. So what you want to get to, and this is basically what this grid is trying to do, right, is like when you're getting to where you want to get functionally to like 95 to 96 functional IED. Of course, yeah, we have like exclamation mark IED on like how it's calculated and everything, and what the sources are. So you can look at the sources and be like, okay, based on opportunity cost, like where do we go? But the major thing is to understand is that this is like, you're going to be doing party bosses here, right? So solo, you might be a little bit lower, but a lot of party members have some kind of extra ID that goes into, and that might mean that if you have 93, that functionally you're at 96 just because of what the party does.
Okay. I'm assuming Pirate Flag too, and all the other.
So Pirate Flag, once your max is 100% uptime, right? And is that 20% when maxed?
I have mine maxed. It's 25%.
25.
Mine is 25%. Yep.
Yeah, so that means a quarter of your missing IED to 100% is being added on what you already have. So if visually you have 94, then you're adding a quarter of 6, which is 1.5, so you go into 95.5. It's like rough,
Okay.
the rough math there. And then, like you mentioned, boost nodes, that's something you want to add onto it, because only if like 100% of your damage is coming from boost nodes, or from node boosted skills, then you could count the full 20%, right? But if only like 20% of your damage or 30% of your damage is coming from that, you can't really count 20% because it's only being applied over 20 or 30% of your damage. So some characters like Dual Blade can go very low early on. Eventually you'll go to the same percentages, but early on you go very low because they have like 3 skills, I believe, that have, or 2 skills that have 100% built into it. So technically if they have 0%, they would still hit true damage on those skills. And they have 2 skills that have like built-in 30% and that are boosted in some way. So, you know, even with like 75% or something, they could even get away doing CRA. So that's like an exceptional case. I think for you, you might have a few skills that have extra ID built into it, but in general, I think pretty much what you see is what you get for Buccaneer, right?
Okay.
The real reason they probably staggered at the 15 is because it's just so expensive to go like past 12 already. It gets pretty pricey, but past 13 is like crazy expensive, and the opportunity cost for so much in IED versus spreading those points out around among your other stats is just not a good idea. And it might make more sense to look at the sources of IED and move some stuff around to get to that same percentage.
That's what I did. I also have a 30% IED familiar as well.
Yeah.
So that, with that on, I go all the way up to 95 now, like I was before when I had 15%. But I that's what I reorganized everything. I redid my Legion. I was able to fill it up, and it did. I mean, I basically got the same result without having to dump 15 points into my hyperstats. So
Yeah, and did you feel like you gained more points on the other fields?
I did, and boss damage and damage in general and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's why that extreme, that looks really weird, because unless someone is like level 200, like 290 or something, right, then you can have like a 14 and a 15, and then that makes sense for your whole balance. But in general, if you see someone, they've got like level 13 and then next to it is like level 7, then that, I mean, that might be their optimal setup, but that also means that something else should be moving instead, because that's just too big of a disparity because of the exponential scale of how much more expensive every level gets on hyperstats. So
it's like double every time, right?
There's a certain, like, it starts with 1, 2. I know it starts with 1, 2, 4, 8, 10, and then it's 15, 20, 25, 30, 35.
Okay.
And then it goes like 50, 65, 80, something like that. Yeah, it doesn't quite double because then it would be insane. Then the last level would be like 600 or something, which yeah, you need a bunch of levels to afford that. But yeah, it gets pretty pricey for sure.
Okay.
So it's something to yeah, and I'm working on like a little bit more updated hyperstat guide as well to give people some more insight on how to do it. So in general, like if I'm looking at your Legion grid, like I mean, there's only like one little overlap on the bottom that should probably be in the critical damage instead up top. But other than that, if you have enough crit, you know, and then you fill out your IED, your critical damage, and then the rest goes into boss damage, that's the priority you want. Yeah, I mean, depending on the character you're playing, if you're on a buck, you probably want to change the luck for strength. But other than that, you're golden.
Yeah,
right?
I think I was just using my Night Lord.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no, too easy. Awesome.
Yeah, and for like for mobbing, the main thing is like if you need the normal damage, you know, then cap that out. If you don't need it, then cap out the boss EXP. But other than that, yeah, as much crit rate as you need, and then the same priority basically: critical damage, normal monster damage. You basically swap out the IED for bonus EXP, right, and the boss damage for normal monster damage. But other than that, the priorities are the same. The shape is just a little bit more awkward because of the placement of normal monster damage.
So I picked normal monster damage specifically because I have so many like 185s through 165s that are kind of in purgatory right now. So it kind of makes my life easier to just get them all the way up to 200 when I do have that extra normal damage. I also put normal damage into the ignition buff too.
Yep.
Because I expected I was going to be training a lot during
Yeah, I
night
made a lot of
before.
level 4s myself, because again, there are also 5 just seemed too expensive for most of the buffs. So I just made like
Right.
3 or 4 level 4s. Kind of like with hyperstats, where it's like, no, I don't need to go all the way here. I just went into
Okay.
EXP and into boss damage, IED, normal monster damage, like all of those, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, no, for Legion setup, that's totally fine, yeah. And yeah, you don't have anyone who needs buff duration, right? That you're playing more of.
No, I have it on. No, I don't. But since you mentioned buff duration, I have 25% on my inner ability.
Mm-hmm.
Does that tie into terms and conditions and Maple Goddess Blessing?
Terms
Will
and
that extend
condition.
that, like the
Um,
AV link skill?
terms and condition, yes. The Goddess Blessing, no.
Okay.
Because terms and condition, so it works on buffs up to 4th job. So, and terms and condition is seen as like a beginner skill, because that's where it's like where the link skills are, where that's connected.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Do you think it's worth it for me to hold on to that 25%?
as a buck, probably not. But the question is more like, how expensive would it be to roll something else, right? And also, I think we had inner ability reroll literally yesterday, but there's another one. There's another one coming pretty soon. So, what I found from the buck is I think I have Meso Obtain and normal monster damage right now just for leveling, but the Meso Obtain seems pretty useless because my pets cannot loot anything. But do you have vac pets? Because then that would make a difference. Oh, you don't, yeah.
No, one of my questions that I have written down is somebody was saying that we're gonna get back pets again on the 11th. I'm definitely going to definitely gonna buy one.
Did you hear in their voice if they were on copium or not? Was it like a raspy deep
It
voice?
sounded legit.
Was it like?
It sounded legit. It was a
We're
streamer.
getting
I don't
back
remember what I was watching.
Were they like huffing something when you're? No, I mean people would be saying a lot of shit. But yeah, there was sometimes there's like data. Don't want to say data breach. That sounds a little bit extreme, but what's it called? Like data mining, right? Sometimes there's like some data mining going on, and people find that they are for sale. I think for Buccaneer specifically is one of the characters where you kind of need it because you're just zooming through the map so fast that they have no chance of looting. You don't want to have the Night Lord situation again, where you spend so much time training and then have no money to show for it at the end.
Right, like, that's something I was kind of kicking myself because when I made the Buccaneer, I had no intention on maining it. Like my intention was still to main my Night Lord. I really didn't like the revamp, and I really enjoyed playing on my Buccaneer in Destiny. And plus, you got all that free stuff from Destiny as well. Like that was my first 250 and everything. I was like, crap, like this is really fun.
You know, either way, it's a good idea to. Sorry. Yeah, you didn't think you need. Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah.
Well, yeah, nobody should need it, right? But yeah, it's just impossible for your pets to really loot. I only have 1 pet on my buck, so maybe with 3 pets it's a little better. But yeah, I'm just zooming so hard through the map. The pets, they barely get to loot anything.
Yeah, it's really not that good. My income per week is actually rather low for I think how much I play.
And you want even the bigger the map you want, the better, the more rates, right? But then it's even harder for the pets to loot because it's spread on more platforms, and it's even more horizontally. It's like further apart, so yeah, the pet is just getting dragged around the map.
It's not a good
it's like
look.
2 bags every time it teleports. So like, yeah, I'm helping, but not really. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, but yeah, it's not that easy or not that fun to loot with Buck. But when I had that, so I put the Con Candy Pink Bean on my Demon Avenger, but the other one that we got before that, the Sherbet, I had that when I was like in the 230s, and I remember I was in Shadow Dance Hall and I was just living life. Like that was the best.
Yeah, that's the type of map you want.
Yeah, like zooming from one side of the map to the other, just oh my god, my rates were amazing. And then I think it expired once I reached Moonbridge, and that's when stuff started to become kind of shitty.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, this is how the other half lives. Yeah. You did mention familiars before when we were talking about IED. Did you have any specific familiar questions?
So I have my large drop rates now, and I wanted to. So I posted all the ones that I thought were pretty good. So that way you can see what I had. I have continuously restores a large amount of HP to party members. I have one of those, and then I have one that's just for me. But I don't have any boss Because I know boss is pretty difficult to get, right?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with
Yeah.
my DA. Also, don't have any.
Okay. So just keep working on it. Just keep revealing stuff until I get boss percentage.
Yeah, but you got
Okay.
two large amount. Yeah, and also a small party heal and large amount of heal, a large amount of drop, I guess. You got a lot of drops here.
Yeah, I got too many because dude, I watch a lot of your progression series, especially when
Mhm.
I'm at work. I'll just put a headphone in and I'll just be watching it while I type away at my spreadsheets.
Mhm.
And I remember like every other person who's like 220 below, you tell them that they probably need a large drop.
Mhm.
Or they should start walking. Not that they need one, but they should start working towards getting
Yeah.
one once they get into a place where they can farm familiars. And like I was like, all right, well, I guess this is something I should start working on. I started working on it when I was in the 230s, I think, and I didn't get anything until I hit Moonbridge and then so on and so forth, and then just started having an explosion of large drop.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I feel weird deleting them though. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I know they don't really serve me a purpose having so many of them, but it's just kind of I
Yeah. I
feel
mean, yeah. No, I get what you mean. I mean, I would say this one shrouds you in darkness, so if you don't feel like doing that, you could pick the other one. But in general, the one with the higher defense is better, right? Because it'll deplete your bar slower.
okay.
So then
Okay.
you can keep them summoned a little bit longer.
Yeah, you know, I never I never noticed that there was an attack and a defense on
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So
Okay.
typically, if it's a unique card, you'll see the attack and defense be higher because you get better rolls than epic ones, right? You see 8 and 6, and then you see 11 9, 10 11, 8 11, 8 10, and the other one is a 6 6 as well. So it's very rare for an epic to get like 10 or more on rolls, but uniques pretty much always get that. So
Okay.
if you manage to get like 30 defense together or something in your familiar cards, like if you, it's kind of counterintuitive, but the bar goes slower the more defense you have. So if you put more characters in that are higher level, you'll have a slower depleting bar, and that, you know, eventually once you get out of the areas where they drop and you start kind of like running low on familiars, you don't want to have to constantly be using that familiar energy to upkeep, you know, them being summoned, and yeah, that's going to help you in the long run.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that little gas tank is getting expensive at this point, so
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm like
Okay.
scraping by now. I have one for like special occasions on my DA, but I have no familiar income, and I haven't had any for like 20 levels, or well, for like 15 levels, because I went to Discernium immediately when I could, and there's no sign of any kind of grandest familiars at this point. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes a finite resource. So treat it as such.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, what I was thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, inevitably, this character is gonna eventually reach Cernium once I get my sacred symbols up, right? Just because the
Yeah.
XP rates are significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
Can't I can just start funneling my DA or my whichever one I choose to train, you know,
Yep. Yeah, if
after
you
I'm
know
done
that
with
that
my
character
card.
is not going to make that jump, like to be that carry, you can start funneling your familiars into this character. Yeah, it's good to have a plan like that, to be like, what do I do after, you know, once I move on? Like, how do I keep sustaining or supplying my character? For me, that was the same thing as like, I'm starting to look for the next character to take past 250 just so I can start getting any kind of card, so I can hopefully get some boss familiars on my DA at some point. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Hopefully with the Hyperburn, make some cards and throw those towards the DA. And probably work on the Cannoneer after that, I think, is kind of the goal at this point. To see at least 255, see it see 260 maybe, and then, yeah, kind of funnel those cards over. Typically,
Did
when
you
you think about
hyperburn?
funneling... Oh, sorry?
Oh, did you hyperburn your buck?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I remember you said you wanted to make a Demon Slayer a long time ago, but then you weren't
Yeah,
too sure.
yeah. Yeah, the Demon Slayer is doing monster proc and everything, so it's already like 226, so I felt like, you know, that's still the easiest levels on the 250, but I think eventually... I'm just not really falling in love with it with the Demon Slayer. It's super strong, for sure, but it's not... It doesn't exactly have that, you know, that it factor thing that I'm looking for, so I'm not hard committing to it, basically.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
That's kind of how
Yeah,
my hero and my marksman got, like, eventually to 250, but I didn't really love them enough to really go all out on them. So, you know, they've been just doing hard loose and hard will forever to try to get arcane gear, and then the hero ended up getting all the gear for like 3 characters, and then the other characters ended up getting
right.
nothing. So
Oh man,
it's always clustered like
I blew up my first Twilight mark ever,
that.
literally a day before our session.
Oof.
I was like, crap. Yeah, I'm back to the condensed power crystal, which actually, that's actually something else. Since I mentioned that,
Mm-hmm.
should I do the commercy face accessory, even though I have nothing to transpose? I haven't gone a bean mark. I haven't gone a Papulatus mark yet,
Mm-hmm.
and I just blew up my Twilight mark. So do you think it's worth it, Star Force wise, for me to switch over from my condensed power crystal to just a
Like a tattoo.
poorly flamed tattoo or a no flame tattoo, just for the stars? Or
Well, I say it would depend on your access to Twilight marks. If you're kind of like, on top of the list to be able to get one. I don't know what your system is right now with your party, because that's always what I'm thinking about. Like, what is the supply, right? Because again, if you don't need the damage right now and you're okay doing everything that you can do, I would always take that as a sign. You don't have to make small jumps and upgrades. You can make big jumps and upgrades, which would be skipping something like a tattoo and going straight for the Twilight mark. Why is the Twilight mark a skip? It's because it's a slower thing to upgrade, and because set bonus with the slime ring eventually will make it better if it goes high enough compared to a tattoo, right? So the question is, depending on your access to the piece, is do you immediately, like, how far do you push it, right? Some people will say like 17 so I can use it, and then maybe if I get another one, I'll try to get it to 19 or something. If I don't, I can, remake it, have a backup back to 17. Some people say I'll just straight up at least get it to 19, otherwise I'm not even investing flame and potential money. And some people would be like 22 or trace, because they're weirdos like that. But depending on your strategy there, I think you want to cater your strategy towards what's your income on the marks. Like, are you running with a bunch of people who already have it, or?
so yeah, they don't. Literally last week, everyone had one. We got one for Lucid and for Will. I picked up. We do Will first, so I got the one for Will first,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got another one in Lucid, and nobody really needed it. Someone just took it because they asked for it, but they didn't need it.
Okay. Yeah,
So
if that's the case, I would just... Yeah, I would definitely still do like commercies. Make sure you have the narrows whenever you get a pat mark, right? So you can really capitalize on that, because that's going to be a big upgrade. And do you already have the transposed pendant, or?
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
oh, you do, yeah, okay.
I think I'm on the lower end of what's acceptable to transpose.
11, 64, 5, 9. No, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay.
That's like 4 over, I would say. And 105. I think 105 is like minimum. You're at 109, so that's fine.
But yeah, no. Then that okay. So just out of curiosity, right? So I can write this down.
Yes.
If I get a pat mark, go straight with the tattoo, right? But if I don't, or not tattoo, is it tattoo?
No, it's the other one.
Pat mark transposes into the monocle. No.
Yes.
Pat mark. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the eye. So the way you can remember it is that the monocle. That's like glasses, right? So that goes directly onto your eyes. And the for some reason the pat mark is an eye, but there are certain marks in the game as well that are called marks, but they're face accessories. So that's why it's legitimately confusing.
Okay.
Yeah, just... You could technically transpose a Twilight mark into a tattoo if you wanted to, and that is not the worst thing. But you lose that possible set bonus with the slime ring, right? So then you'd have to use the Dawn pendant to get the set bonus with the slime ring. So it doesn't really make sense to do that. Plus, you're putting then a lot of pressure on your dineros if you're trying to get like high Star Force transposed tattoo and pendant and mark. Like it's... or monocle. Like, there's a lot of pressure on your dineros at that point. You want to kind of spread that out. It's a little bit more.
Gotcha. Okay. Nope. That makes sense.
Yep.
All right. So just keep working at it. Just try and get a pat mark or a Twilight mark, and just keep moving up from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully it drops sooner rather than later, so you can commit.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good to me. I'm very close to AK Legion.
Yep.
Just keep going to AK. Nothing much to work from there, right?
Yeah, slow and steady. I mean, you probably have the characters left now that you like the least, which is pretty much all of them by the looks of it. So any kind of infinity pool with like an insane amount of growth potions is probably what you would like.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Anything that you can like mass growth potion. Although I don't think there's any event like that on the way. What I ended up doing, I don't know if this will help you, but basically once you get like, you know, all the Monster Crossman cubes you get, they probably have very limited use in like your top 5 characters, right?
Right.
Or you'd have to get like 40 of them to make sure that, you know, you end up with something better than you had before. What I started doing at a certain point is the characters that needed to still get to 200 but that were like stuck in their 180s is try to get like Sweetwater Weapon on them, because that's just really good base stats, and try to get like their emblem and their secondary, just to try to get it up to unique with like maybe 1.5 useful lines, but at least like 9% magic attack or attack on a top line. Or, you know, if it rolls 9% in epic, then you keep that. Just to get those base stats of all of them a little bit up. And once you find that a character hits those marks, then just like crush it out like when you have some time, and just like crush it out to 200, so you can just, you know, put that aside and work on the next one kind of thing. Because the downside of and I made a video on this on extreme growth potions, like there's really good value in bringing like all the characters up to 160, all up to 170, all up to 180. That's really good for your Legion. But then once you try to make that jump from like 7.6, 7.7 up to 8, you're just left with a Legion of characters that is like funded like a level 120 and just can't kill anything.
I think my Corsair, I don't know if you see my Corsair, it's a 185. He's just standing there with like level 90 gear.
Yeah, I don't think this character can kill anything near its level from the looks of it. It's not happening. Yeah. So like slowly taking some time to fund like just one after the other, just one project at a time. It could be the way to go. And then, you know, you're still going to be left with like 4, 5, 6 of them that you didn't get to. And then whenever you have extreme growth potions, you'll be able to just more specifically target them. And that should get you that 8k.
Okay.
There's a few that have a bit more value than others, right? Like Hayato, for example, you get that critical damage. You get 2 critical damage extra when you hit to 200. So I prioritize that one slightly higher.
So quite Hayato, Jet, and I think is there one more that gives
Shade
damage?
as well. Shade.
So I got my Shade to 150, and I just did the you know, the little burning to 150 thing that we get from daily logins. I did that to my Jet yesterday. Yeah, the little mega burninator.
Mega burnator, yeah.
Yep. I did it on my Jet yesterday, and I got it up to 150.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
But I noticed it's written differently. So for Jet, it says increases critical damage. Is that just like a GMS to KM?
Oh yeah, there's like 3 different ways that they write strength as well. Sometimes they say increased strength, sometimes they say increased strength plus, and then sometimes it's strength 40. It's like backwards. There's like 3 different ways that they write things. It's just, yeah, you know, old code.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it does the same thing. Though,
yeah,
right?
it definitely does the same thing. Yeah, because I've got this thing, right, with the links and the Legion. So you can see here which stats all the characters give, all the intervals for all the tiers, and for all the link skills as well. Sometimes a little bit extra pictures, so you can like have the... What is this? Oh yeah, beautiful. So you can like have the numbers and everything. So if you're ever wondering, like, you know, what is priority at this point where you're working on, like, what could I get the most benefit from? You see that interval from 1, 2, 3 to 5. That's pretty big considering, because you know how rare critical damage is. So getting the Jet, Hayato, and Shade to 200 is definitely something that's useful. And then typically the ones that aren't as useful at 200, but then have a very good link skill at level 210, for example, like your Demon Slayer, right? Those would be like pretty close behind that. So I'll probably just focus on getting those characters to those benchmarks, and then whichever characters are left, throwing extra extreme growth potions on there whenever those are available, and then that should get you your 8k.
And after that, just jump into the ones that give me strength, right?
Yeah. Basically, just work your way down, because eventually, you know, you get to main stat, so you get the strength over here. Just work your way to the right, basically.
Okay. No, that works. That makes sense. Sweet. So is there anything that you see that looks like a glaring mistake on my character so far, or?
I'm kind of interested in your because we did talk about the hyper stats, But I still have some questions. So you have two different setups with like one for mobbing, one for bossing, right?
Yes, I do. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Did I not include the mobbing one?
Oh, there's a picture underneath here, but it doesn't have the hyperstats next to it. It might be
Okay.
somewhere though. Maybe I missed it.
So those are both. That's just my bossing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, buffed and then unbuffed, I guess.
Yeah, which is a
Without
huge
all.
difference for bucks, right? It's like
Yeah.
triple
Yeah, 37 to 32K is yeah, it's huge.
extra stats, lightning form. Um,
Let me do you want me to just get into my mobbing gear and then send you a screen cap real fast? Would that help?
well, we'll just talk about the general priority, and you can see what's you can see if that makes sense. But what we were talking about the numbers before is like the balance. Something that immediately kind of jumps out to me, and why I'm mentioning it is because there's some constants that you pretty much always want to have. There is almost never a time where you want to have. No, I would say there's never a time when you want your strength or your attack power to be any higher or at the same level as your big five, your big four basically, right? Your critical damage, IED damage, and boss damage. These always want to be at the same level, or those always want to be higher. Because if you can go as high as 10 here, that means if you go down to like 4 on both of these, you can always at least slam a level here. And that's always good. That's pretty much with our current, how damage works, always going to be more efficient than having a little bit more attack power and a little bit more strength. Because strength is a flat amount, right? It doesn't multiply with your percentage stats. And the attack just isn't enough of an increase to nullify. Because like your ID being at 8 here, it's still, even though you like fixed a bunch of stuff, I would bet like a whole lot of money and put my hand in flames if you took like 4 or 5 out of strength and 5 out of attack power and you got the ID at least a 10, that your damage would just go up.
Okay.
Like 100% cert. Yeah. Because
Gotcha.
up to 10, it's like it's relatively cheap, especially at your level, right? So if you were like level 240, you might keep a bunch of things at like 7 or 8. That makes sense. But if you're like in the 260s, these 4 in the middle, these big 4, do always want to be 10 or higher. That's like your foundation. And critical rate just however much you need, which for the buck won't be as much when you're bossing, right? Because you've got that extra 20%. So you only want a little bit. And as your Legion gets to 8k, then that pretty much always goes down to 0, right? Because all of the extra pieces you get on the board.
So focus on crit damage, ID damage, and boss damage, pretty much.
Yeah, like
Right.
at
Those are
your
the
level,
big
you
4.
just slam those all to 10, and then you start looking at like, what do I actually need beyond this? And then, yeah, if you're like fully, well, your crit damage is here at 70%, but you have 3. Oh, you don't have any stacks on the thing, right? Because it's just buffed but
Yeah.
not stacked, right? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was in the homeroom when I
Mhm.
don't have any.
That goes up 30%. Is it like 10%? 3 stacks.
For the link skill, let me see. So that link skill is maxed out to level 6. It's 3% per stack, right? Attacking is 25%. Yeah, so isn't it? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So you're
The
asking me?
the hyper skill that
Yep.
gives you critical damage.
Oh, the hyper skill.
Yeah.
That is what's that one called?
Yeah, something Sea Dragon, the blue thing.
Serpent Spirit.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yep, I have it on my. Yeah, it's on there. It's
Mhm.
on my pet, so it's on auto buff.
Yeah, but it doesn't have stacks here, so that's because I'm looking at your critical damage. It seems a little bit low, but that's because that's not stacked, right? So there's a bunch of
probably
critical
didn't
damage
have-
missing there because you're just using it in like a map rather than hitting monsters. Because I think you need to hit for it to stack, if I remember correctly.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
But like, let's say that your critical damage was like 300% or something, then you might keep your critical damage a little bit lower at like 8 or 9. But even then, you're probably getting it to 10 eventually. But then you definitely prioritize the other stats. So if you look at your stat window, you get a decent amount of damage, and decent amount of IED. And I think we talked about it with the last session as well. But your critical damage also goes up decently. But you pretty much have very similar value in all 4 of these metrics. So you kind of want to bring them up evenly. So like all to 10, all to 11, all to 12. The priority in which you get them to 12 is not that important. It's all really close. So if it's like in your setup, you probably end up with like 11, 11, 10, 12, or something like that. That's probably going to be what you want in those small stats. And again, it's not a huge difference from where you're at, but what's more important for me is like the underlying, like seeing those priorities and seeing where your damage comes from. That's more important to know because that'll spread out to other things, right? Into like your Legion grid and your link skills and what kind of potential you're looking for later and what you try to min-max on later, right? With star forcing and everything. Just a general priority list of like, this is where more damage comes from than here.
Okay. So I took a note of that. So take out the points in strength, take out the points in attack. So essentially just redo hyperstats. 10, 10, and 10, the big four. And then just see what I need after that and put a couple points here or there.
Yeah, get enough to crit to get to 100. I don't know if you still need 6. That might also be from a while ago because of the extra 20 when you're bossing, right? So you should get to close to 100 really quickly. But again, it depends on which link skills you use there as well. So take the link skills that you're comfortable with when you're bossing, and that get you, close to that 100% crit point, and then just hyper stats to finish up to get to 100. And then once you're at 100, then go to the big four, and then whatever's left after you make some 11s, maybe a 12. And then whatever's left, maybe it's like 20 points or something, right? You can't level up anything anymore. And then just go into attack until you can't do attack anymore. And then go into strength until you can't do strength anymore. And if you have anything left, you throw it into dex, basically.
Okay.
Now, the one big exception could be, but this would be like a third setup that you make. If you want to do hard will, and you can do the thing where you can get enough arcane power to get more bonus final damage on hard will, that could be more valuable, right? Because that's final damage, and that's a separate source of final damage, so that's stacking with everything. And a third setup like that, because you're at the cusp now, right? Because I see you're at 1170 here with level 2 arcane power, that would be a higher priority. So, but that would be a third setup, because that would be only for hard will. So that would be like an exceptional setup. So that's typically your 3 setups, like a mobbing setup, a bossing setup, and then maybe an exceptional arcane power setup.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want that 10%.
I think that'll be good. I have my Choo-Choo and my Arcane are about to level up to 17 and 16, so I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, you need 1140, so as long as you, even without this Arcane Power, you should stay, but I don't know if you have anything else extra on right now. You might have a little bit in the event buff or something, and then when the event buff falls away, you might go just under that number, so just something to mention, something to be looking at.
Okay, I thought it was 1190. I didn't realize it was 1140.
Yeah, 1140. So base is 760 plus half of 760 is 380. So 1,000, and then 60 plus 80 is 140. So 1140. Yeah.
I did not realize that. Well, thank you. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it was 1180. Then I wouldn't know what the base would be, right? Because what is 2/3 of 1180? That's 40 more. Yeah, so you need 2/3 of 40, which would be a weird number. It wouldn't be.
Okay. No, that works for me. That's good for me.
Like 27 or something. Yeah, it would be a weird requirement.
Sweet. All right.
Yep. You said any other glaring stuff? Yeah. Let's see. The other glaring stuff is that Amy's forehead is just massive. If you look at these proportions, it doesn't make any. Her ears are the size of her eyes, and then her eyes are here, and then her head ends there. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
If I change, I lose all this progress.
Yeah, no, that's true. But look at the width of her shoulders, though, compared to the size of her head. Like, what is going on here? I get that we're playing a chibi game, but this is. Wait, did you actually dress up your character as Amy? Is this what's going on here?
No.
That's just a coincidence.
Coincidence, yeah.
Purely coincidental. Yeah, but you see the traits are leveling quite nice. You got 69 fame, so that's the best. You probably died to Pink Bean and Dojo, I'm guessing.
Yes.
I love how you can see that floor 49, and there's like a whole story behind it. Happens to a lot of people.
I did it. So last time I did it, I was at 28k, and I got up to 49. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm at 32 now. I should be able to fucking get through Pink Bean. And I died, and I rage quitted, and I'm just like, all right. I feel like I can kill him. I'm pretty confident that I can, because last time when I got up there, I had 4 minutes left.
Oh yeah,
But,
it's just a patience thing. Like it's you just sit there. It's why DR doesn't exist on higher level bosses. It's just a time gating mechanic where you're just like, oh no, I didn't pay attention for half a second, now I died. Or wow, I did pay attention, now I have to wait for 15 seconds until this boss gets his act together. You know?
I was pretty annoyed. And then my wife came over to me. She started talking to me. I'm like, babe, this isn't the right time.
I'm gonna need you to give me a minute. Or Magic Crash.
Okay.
Yeah, some characters have something that you can block DR, but very few characters have that. And at least you can still hit with I say Frenzy, but with I can still hit with Frenzy as a DA. That's one of the benefits. Like Frenzy does damage through DR, so that's nice. But you're just like standing there being like, okay, let me know when I can play the game again. No, but other than that, that looks good. So you're getting a pretty decent buff as well, right? You're using that somewhat daily?
I do. Right now, I haven't been training. Last time I trained my book was my last totem. Now it's just everything, every daily, all the way up to CERN, Monster Park Extreme, and then if I feel like it, I will do the 7 runs on my buck. If I'm feeling antsy or have extra time before reset, I'll shift it down to my Demon Avenger.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a bunch of those medals, so I'm just using it on whatever character. I'm just going character per character just to get the medal, and then moving on to the next one, trying to find like a low-ish level character just to get it free EXP, basically, to walk it up.
I know it says that I anviled my medal. It's the King Pirate medal, but it's actually the Monster Park Extreme one. So I already did that.
Oh, you already did that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I forgot to take a screenshot of that particular one.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. And you're working on the slate right now as well.
I am. So I started Choo Choo very late. Not Choo Choo. I started Misty Island very late. Okay. Yeah.
So you have it. So you're talking about like the third box that you might not be getting that one, or?
I don't think I'm gonna get the second box.
Okay. Maybe mathematically you can still get it. Are you doing the challenge mode?
I will be today. I'm kind of working from home today. Today's my last day of work before I go on vacation. So I was going to try and get to 25 today, day 25 on it, and see if I can get my first box. But then I do it, get my first box, and then I have to wait, right? Or can I just go straight and try and get the second one?
Oh, you can go straight into challenge mode, yeah.
Okay.
That'll be challenge mode. Well, you finished after 3. Yeah. Well, challenge mode is to get to 25, right? Yeah, but so there's like you want to make sure that you look at the challenges and look at the achievements before you go in, and then what happens once you survive day 25, you don't get kicked out like in the other modes. You just stay in, and then you can do the achievements afterwards, and there will be no more goblin invasions. So you can just freely just stay in there and do the achievements as much as you can.
Okay.
So you can just walk around, make sure you get enough food and all that, but you can walk around, get all the materials, and make all the stakes and stuff. I think that's the one you want to do, right?
The stakes. Which one is that one?
Yeah, because one is to survive all the way up to day 25 in Challenger mode. That's one of the boxes. And then the other one is you have to, I believe, make 15 stakes, and then make 1 deluxe steak and eat that. I believe that's what you want to do. Or maybe it's 25 steaks. Someone says 25 in chat.
Challenge mode, cook and eat masterpiece steak dish after trying to cook steak dish 25 times. Okay. Yeah.
So that's one that you can do just afterwards. You can look that up, but basically what you need a lot of eggs, meat, and coconut is what you need. And you need like like the stove, basically, that you can put 3 different ingredients in at a time. Not like the regular campfire, you can only put 2 items in there. But again, that's only to make that last dish, but it'll make it a little bit faster. What else do you need? Oh, yeah, you need the herbs as well. So herbs, meat, eggs, and coconut. That's basically what you're going to need a lot of. Yeah, and you just craft a whole bunch of those. So those 2 boxes are pretty free. But for the third box, you need to kill the Goblin King 15 times on 15 separate days. And you only get that guy at like wave 24 in Challenger mode.
Okay.
and
So
we
it's
are.
gonna be an everyday thing. Well, I can challenge it 5 times a day, right? I can do.
Yeah,
it
but
5 times a day.
so the Goblin King kill only counts once per day for that last box. But that last box gives you 5 flames per week, so that gives the same amount as the first 2 boxes combined. So that's what a lot of people's, hopes and dreams are hinging on. That will give them something good. And we are January 9th, so including today, you've got 16 more days.
Okay.
So you could still make it, but that's a lot of pressure on all the next days. But yeah, so mathematically, you could still go for that 3rd box as well.
Okay. I'm gonna be realistic. I know I'm not going for it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just giving you the info, not telling you to do it. Just
No, then I know myself. So I
Yeah.
get home. I get home about -2, and within those 2 hours, before I even eat or take off my work clothes, I just do my dailies, and then I'm done with MapleStory. So like I know for a fact I'm not gonna do that. Plus we're going on a trip, so
yeah, that's not
I'm just
working
gonna
then.
try and get. Yeah, I'm gonna try and get 2 boxes, and I'll just be fine with whatever I get.
Yeah. So flame-wise, if you get all 3 boxes, people are looking for flames, like, I think around, like, 93 flame score or something. So you'll just aim a little bit lower than that, so anything, like, in the 80s will probably be a good settle for you.
Okay.
If you see that, then you just stop, because the chance that you never get there again with the rest of the boxes will be pretty high, so then you'll know you can take your foot off the gas.
Sounds good to me. Sweet.
Okay, what else were we looking at?
Can I ask you about Star Force priority? And what I should
Sure.
be
Yeah, because I think we
focusing
got through most of the other stuff, right? Oh, yeah, I want to look at your backups first, because you had like a really big picture with that. Because that'll also give some indication on what the priority is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, yeah, so you get up to the Black Bean marks, but the Black Bean mark is a drop rate item now, right?
Yeah. So I have 2.
Okay.
I have 1 for damage and 1 for and they're both 18.
Yep. Yeah, you could decide to get just 20 on the damage one and be like the only thing that would really make sense is like a fully transposed and high Star Force monocle before you need to work on that. On the potential, I guess, because you'd work on the flame first. Or an eye patch. But like that, so the higher you go on those temporary items, quote unquote, that you have right now, the more that you can put or the less pressure there is for something to become the next piece that needs to go in, right? Like we talked about the Twilight Mark. Like if you, right now, if you had like a 21 tattoo, you could be like, okay, a Twilight Mark just needs to go to 21 before I even consider equipping it, because I don't even have the slime ring yet, right? So there's no like immediate pressure to work on it, so I'll just try to get it to 21. If it doesn't go, it booms, it's whatever, you know, I'm not too worried about it. But if it does go to 21, now you can think like, okay, well, we'll switch into that, and now the pressure is on to get that slime ring.
Okay.
But as long as you don't have it, it's like, well, whatever I have now is good enough, so. Even if it is a condensed power crystal, I guess. What I did for my characters is, the characters that I know, basically their limit is Hard Lucid, Hard Will, I'm not going to do anything past that. I'm okay with the 17 mark. If I think eventually I want to like solo Lotus and Damien, like those kind, I'd try to get it to 19, because 17 and 19 is still relatively low chance of booming. It's pretty reasonable to get that on your first or your second, maybe at worst on your third one. And I think 19 is already pretty good, and you know, if I ever get any in the future, I can always cross that bridge when it comes to it. But I'm happy with like most of my stuff 19 starred, and then some things like CRA 21. Like I'm super happy with that already. Like that character is going to be balling already. So that's kind of where my head is at, because I'm looking at like, okay, what class is it? How far am I going to take it? What content do I want to be able to do with it? And can it do that content? And then the more you spread out where your money goes over your pieces that you have, the lowest risk you have to incur on every piece relatively. And that's kind of what you're doing, right? Because you have some 18s, you have some 19s. That gets you up evenly in a very efficient way with the money that you have. And it's kind of how you're forced to play it if your income, like you said, isn't insane. But once your income starts rolling, and what basically means is once you get a whole bunch of bossing mules, then you can start really like throwing money around. But until then, I think you're using your money pretty wisely from what I saw with the star forcing. Gotcha. But let's look at that right now. So you got the drop and the meso gear. So you got full meso, full drop on this guy?
Yep. I got 5. I had asked you previously while you were streaming, and you said, yeah, you want to go for 5 mesos. So that's what I tried to do. I don't reach max drop by any sort of stretch, but I wouldn't use that when I'm training anyways, right? All as long as I'm at 67 and I got my fam, I'm good. Okay.
These are all the drop of meso pieces, right, on the bottom? You don't have any extra besides this?
Nope.
Okay.
And then my inner ability too.
Yeah, an inner ability, yeah. Because this is a good setup because you got double, well, yeah, the superior, unfortunate, but you got double drop there. And 1 double drop is what you want because, you know, it stacks up to 10 lines of drop rate, right?
Right. Okay.
So you want, if you have 1 double and then 9 pieces in total, boom, that's your 10, and then you can cap. This is really nice eventually because you don't seem to have a huge trouble with like getting the drops, but you know, Dominators can run out pretty quickly, and especially the rings. I don't know how you are for primals. Do you have those here as well, or do you have those in storage or something?
6. I have 6, and I think I am about 50,000 away from getting Meister and Ardent Mill right now with the professional stuff. So I'm about to start producing Meister rings like crazy. I'm not gonna do them all. Because that makes no sense, right? I can transfer them to another character if I wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. But this is why I like good drop rate, is because you can hopefully get more kind of treasure rings, which means you can keep your primals as universal backups for your account, and basically as transferable rings. And I like having that, because then if one of your other characters either gets unlucky, or you want to send a character a little bit earlier, you know, a kind of a young character, you want to send it through the game faster, then you can do that and brute force that with Meister rings instead. So yeah, as little as you need to. But the reason I like that drop rate a lot is because there's a lot of drops specifically in the Dominator and the kind of treasuring where you just need many, because you want a high Star Force kind of treasure. You typically want another one to transfer into the superior, right? And then in some reasons you want another one to transfer into a second superior into the slime ring. So there's just a lot of pressure and a lot of opportunity for kind of treasurings to do something for your account. And even if you get unlucky, and you know, the more there are, the more likely that one of them gets unlucky and booms like 8, 9, 10 times. So you can't really have too many of those. Same thing with Dominator, right? Dominator straight up, Dominator transpose, Dominator transfer into superior, Dominator transfer into superior into source of suffering. So like Dominators will always have, you know, as your account grows, will always have a purpose there. So that drop rate will always see purpose as well, because it's going to provide you with those pieces. And you know, that will help as well with like superior pendants, superior earrings, right? So you eventually get into 21, get into 22, and that'll take pressure off of your coins, which means you can get your coins more to get the other pieces to 21 and 22, and maybe go into a reinforced ring, right? So it's all connected together.
Sweet.
So yeah, I would work at this point, if you don't, right, if you're kind of like waiting for projects like a Twilight Mark, like that kind of stuff, and you can actually train everywhere where you can, and like you said, you're probably going to be where you're now, at least for like until 270, right, until you have that sacred power up, because you want to be killing with Lord of the Deep, and that's going to be a pretty high bar for going into those next areas. I would definitely try every now and then, you know, you hit like 265, you hit like some decent sacred. I would definitely like try it, you know, with like guild skills on and everything, and see if you can kill properly there. If you can, then you can think about, like, do I move? Do I have a contingency for income of familiars, etc.? But as long as you're not moving, up, God, how did we get here? Oh yeah, and you don't need that damage right now. Wait for those big jumps and those big upgrades. And God, no, I totally lost my train of thought. Wait, we're talking about treasures and Dominators and big upgrades. Sorry.
We're talking about moving up to CERN and how I'm going to be at this stage when I'm probably going to hit the 270s and stuff like that.
Yeah, so your money doesn't necessarily need to go to getting your base equips stronger, but your money can go right now to definitely edging out that full drop rate set, because you have the setup with at least one double drop line already to get to your 200%. I'm not saying you have to get to exactly 200%, but you have the ability to, and like the setup to, and I think that's going to help you a lot in just gathering resources. And again, like you said, not just for this character, but for the whole account, right? Maybe more nodes if you feel like it. Maybe you just wear the drop rate pieces when you're doing your dailies, as long as you don't have a Vec pet, right? Because how much money are you actually getting? But then you might see more nodes. You know, stuff like that. It'll give you the option to be like, I'm just going to node farm now, you know, specifically, rather than rather than Mezzo. You'll have the option, but for bosses
Okay.
mainly, yeah. And pitched in the
So
future
do you
is
think?
garbage. So or drop rate there, the better.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes me to get any pitch boss drop.
Yeah.
So, do you think I should? So what should I just focus on the rings right now? Start getting a lot of rings up to like 20.
Well, you say a lot of rings up to 20.
Well, I would need two just starting off right now because I need one to transfer into superior,
Mhm.
and then I need one to transfer into slime, right?
Yeah, and one by itself, right? So I would go for the by itself first, always, because then you don't transfer down, so you don't lose that extra star, right? So if you could choose between like a 20 superior and a 17 kind of treasure, or a 21 kind of treasure and a 17 superior, that second situation is going to give you more damage, even if the superior is slightly higher level, just because that extra star is better there. So you want to hold on to the 21. Yeah, so that depends if that's the next step for you to do. So if I were to look at your account and my purpose was just to, make my money work for me, but not to do any like crazy expenses, like in general, what am I thinking about? I'm moving into arcanes, right? So I always want to float like 5 to 10 bill so that when I get an arcane, I can immediately jump into that. And I would work on the drop rate gear first, try to get like full 9 set there. So that's
Okay.
do you still have the DMT, or has your DMT already passed?
My DMT is on reset. I think 2 hours after reset today.
Okay. Yeah. So I would
I have about 14 bill saved up. I was gonna just make sure that the DA is good to go because the DA has a whole bunch of uniques.
Okay. Yeah, if you feel like that DA needs the damage more, then I would look at that. If you have some spare money, I would see if you can get some accessories rolling for drop rate on this guy.
Okay.
That's what I would do with the DMT, and then after that, oh, Ludi music in the background. Sorry. After that, I would because your CRA is 19, 19, 20. You get a 20 belt. Boss. Yeah, kind of looking at the leaf emblem as well, because it's not bad in like range that it gives, but that's mostly skewed towards mobbing, right? And then when you're bossing, it's missing out on quite some damage, because essentially what it has is like half of a boss damage line, right? And since you can, like 40 boss and 40 IED and 12 attack is like roughly the same, quote unquote, right? That's why those numbers exist in the way that they do. 21% damage is basically half of a 40% boss damage line. So when you're bossing, it's basically half of a prime line that you have. So you only actually have like 1.5 line when you're bossing. But when you're mobbing, percentage damage scales much better because boss damage doesn't apply at that point. So for mobbing, this is probably better than like 2 lines of attack would be. It's probably like 2.5 lines of attack equivalent. But when you're bossing, this is actually less. So again, if you need the damage, priority wise for when it comes to the potentials, it's probably decently high on the list just to get it to 2 lines of attack instead. But I would be saving money mainly for so for DMT I'd spend drop rate and then keep a buffer for whenever you get an arcane, so you can just switch into it when you get it, and that you can start working on that project. That's probably the Star Force order, but I would probably, maybe since you have kind of treasures, probably the next move would definitely be to get like the damaging kind of treasure up to, or get a kind of treasure for damage up to like 19.
Okay.
And then after that, I would probably still work on a CRA first to get all of that to 21, and then back to the kind of treasuring for 21. But at that point, you're just looking at like, where do I have the backups? Where do I have the room to start gambling? Because it might be that, you try to get the ring to 21 and it just keeps booming, but maybe you have like 2,000 dineros at that point, so maybe the Sweetwater Pendant actually becomes more of an option at that point, right? So wherever you have the backups, that should show itself. So as long as you're evenly contributing like participating in the game, and you're bringing all of your resources up, whenever an event comes around, you'll see where the opportunity lies. But yeah, once you get like CRA 21 and most of the accessories, that you're not going to be transferring stuff around, is like 19, And then you want to start making that jump to 21 on the Con of Treasures, yeah, and then maybe Meisters, and then when your initial, I would say like when you have 21 accessories and then the superiors at 20, like kind of where the belt is, when you have that for all of them, then you probably still want to be working on the potentials quite a bit, and then I would say the leaf emblem is probably what comes to play at that point.
So I have a second one. Should I just start dumping all of my purple cubes into that one?
Oh yeah, I do that, yeah. Oh yeah, because because the hyper. Is it because of Hyperburn? Wait, no, that's from.
It was he was my burn during Destiny.
Oh yeah. The old Terror burn, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I got the fake Absolab and fake thing. Fake dummy. Okay. Cool. So I'll keep that for now, and then I'll just start dumping purple cubes and red cubes if I have any extra on too.
Yep.
Sweet.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then flame wise, I mean, of course, like the really, really good flames that you have access to, but I wouldn't buy them yet and hold on to them in case you get a weapon, right? Arcane weapon. So you can throw them on those if you get a box.
Okay.
But other than that, I'll probably...
The ones that I've been getting from the weekly ignition stuff?
The
like
weekly... Yes, exactly, yeah. I would hold off on buying them until it's like, you know, near the end of the event if you don't get a weapon yet, and then you can still buy them, you know, before, you know, before the shop goes away, of course. But I will hold on to them as long as possible, because that's... Your weapon is really, really high priority if you do get it. Other than that, I would prioritize just whatever other pieces. Are you familiar with like what kind of flame score you want to aim for in general and how that all works?
I saw it on your progression chart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, according to your progression chart, it puts me like, I think it's in the I mean, towards the end of the first half of late game, I think is where I'm at, right? Yeah, so I'm in the middle of late game, just chilling.
Yeah, that's where your level is at, so you kind of want to see if everything else roughly tracks. So for stat, you know, there's definitely room for growth there, but a lot of that comes from, well, Sacred Power is going to help, of course, but a lot of that will come from the fact that you will, you want to finish the potentials kind of after the Star Forcing is done. I feel like you're still a little bit in the Star Forcing era where you need to Star Force first, and then when that's clear, then you can really start rounding out your potentials and gain a lot of stat from that. And then I think, yeah, your Legion is there. Your Star Force is probably a little bit lower than that, right? Yeah, your Star Force is significantly lower. So that's Star Force is where you want to make the most gains, right? You can see that that's where the most space is right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then when you look at the flame scores, I think some of your CRA pieces are actually already around this piece, so you want to be between 85 and 105. So I think some of your CRA pieces are around like 90, 95, so that's fine. But you could definitely push a little bit harder on your arcanes. I would say like going around up to around 120, 125 is pretty doable. And I think what you have right now is like around, yeah, this is like what, 89, and this is like 97. So there's still definitely some space for those to grow. I mean, I would say in general your Pyro Gloves as well, but again, because we're so close to switching them out, it doesn't really make much sense to really go too hard on those now. So I would just focus towards the arcanes, just one piece at a time. So just don't be too scared to like ruin the flame on one of your items, because you won't notice that. It's just purely a mental thing, and you just know eventually you're gonna go for something higher, and then once you have that, you just ruin the flame on something else until that one settles. You know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it gets worse before it gets better, kind of deal.
Cool. I think that's pretty much it. Like, we answered all of my questions, and I mean, you gave me a lot of info that I didn't know I needed to be aware of. So yeah,
I don't see anything crazy other than that. I think you're well on your way. Yeah, the thing with hard Lotus and stuff, it's just some practice, but I think you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. And then, yeah, because if you can get the hang of it like this, and then you can still level your Goddess Blessing and your Overdrive later, right? It's just gonna be so nice. Because the thing with Overdrive as well is it scales pretty shittily, because it scales off of like base attack of our weapon, right? So until you get an arcane weapon, it's not really gonna live up to its full potential anyway. So it's okay to not focus on it too hard early on.
Okay. Sweet. No, that's perfect. So I can just really fast. I can clear all the way up to a catchy on my Night Lord. I haven't. He's about 20k luck. I haven't been able to clear low main with him.
Okay.
And then my DA, I clear 3-door. I can't clear Vellum yet. So I'm hoping that with this miracle time, I can kind of, you know.
You feel like it's a damage thing on these things, or do you die to stuff?
To be honest, once I stopped playing my Night Lord, I kind of forgot how to use him when I came back and created a Buccaneer. So I'm very not good with him. And then I also I took him out of my guild, or out of the guild that I'm in, and I put the Demon Avenger in there. So I did lose guild skills.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Yeah.
So.
The thing for Night Lord is you definitely make sure that you get your bind in, right? Get the Urda Nova, because you want to. All your damage is basically in the spread throw plus the charm skill, so you want to use those at the same time with whatever other burst you can muster if you have Last Resort and stuff like that, or the Shadow Walker. All of those will add final damage.
Okay.
So you pop those things and then look for an opportune moment to bind the boss, so that you can stand really close and spread throw. The exploding charms or whatever it's called. That will be a lot of burst. You're really focused on your burst damage on your Night Lord, so you want to confirm that as much as possible with the bind, and then and try to drop the what we talked about, right? The IED debuff. That's going to make sure that your whole burst does more damage. If you can commit the burst properly, it's all about just surviving in between and using Dark Side a lot, right? Because if you're doing Lotus, for example, like Dark Side blocks all of the falling stuff. So you can just tank it all and not take damage. It's one of the great things about not having an iframe, but having Dark Side instead. In some bosses, you'd rather have Dark Side than an iframe. And yeah, there's one... I don't know if I should just show you in game, but there's one major thing with Lotus that has to do with the... If I tell you what like stutter stepping or kiting is, does that make... Do you have a visual of what that would mean?
It's kind of like what you do with the corkscrew punch, like you get close to them, get away, kind of thing, or no?
Yeah, that's like kiting. But if you're like kiting a boss specifically, so for Lotus, the main thing is that if you're pretty far away from Lotus, as soon as you get in range, he'll try to push you, which means that you're basically 1 or 2 pixels in his range, which means you only have to walk out for like a pixel or 2. This is a bad character to go in because I don't even think I can kill phase 1. Actually, can I? How strong is this character? My embossing setup right now. It'll be a good test. I've never done this boss on this character. Oh, it's a Buccaneer as well, though, so that would make sense. Hang on. This is just like general. Well, you can tell me if I'm missing anything, because you're the pro buck here. I think we use Echo because we can reset that anyway, right?
Yep. No guild, but there you go.
Okay. I'll just go to normal.
So I activate my my lightning form like right before, just because it gives you that little extra DPS, right?
Yeah, I think I'll use that if I feel like okay, immediately almost died. If I need to, for you can use the dash through the laser, right? Have you checked this?
No, I haven't tried that.
Well, let's try, bro. No, that kills you. Okay, good to know. So I would use it too, but I would like use it to get through the laser like that. So I can stay in the middle, right? Stay on the bottom. Oh boy, this is gonna take a while. Yeah, this is not a good idea. But the main thing with actually, I might be able to do another dash after that and get to the other side. I'm gonna try that on the next one. So I'm just like kind of experimenting because I've never played this content before, so I'll just do like this. See if I can. Yeah, so you can go through 2 lasers like that. That's kind of cool.
Your Howling Fist is also an iframe too.
Yep.
So, well, the second part at least. So.
Yeah, I should use Howling Fist first, right? And then use the other 3 charges, and then hopefully the Howling Fist would come back up so I can take like even more time to stay on the bottom. Yeah, I've become painfully aware that it's only the second part and not the first part, because you'll like die while you're charging your Howling Fist, and it'll still go on cooldown. It's not a great time.
Is your Lord of the Deep on?
No, it is not.
Oh.
This is just some performance anxiety, don't worry about it. Yeah, that doesn't... Oh, that's the wrong button.
I'm sorry. I messed you up.
I'm not getting to... I don't think we're getting to phase 2 in this one. But what I wanted to show... I can switch characters real quick. Is the slightly start stepping back and forth will allow you to create space for yourself in Lotus quite a bit, which will make it so that you don't have to... because what a lot of bosses are designed on, Lotus is no different, is kind of like a cascade of failure, right? Like you mess up one small thing, and then you get pushed into another thing, and it gets stunned by another thing, and then suddenly the third skill comes in and kills you, and you feel like you couldn't do anything, right? And a lot of it comes down to just, quote-unquote, just don't get hit the first time, right? So how... And that's what I'm always trying to look at, is like practicing on like... Why didn't I just log into like a really strong character so I can just do it in 2 seconds? I don't know why I do this. Okay. I just do it on DA real quick. Now I have like 16 characters standing on the Lotus door, whatever. Normal practice mode, yeah, so... because like I said, like the little mini game, it really comes down to reducing a boss fight to its basics and not really getting too worked up about the fluff of what's going on. Like right here, you could panic around, but like I know I'm not getting hit, right? Like I'm baiting the attack out. Like that's all you need to really do to just not get pushed around, right? Because he's operating on like max range. So like he can't hit you like this. So as long as you're, as long as that basic is like, so what you want to do when we're the Buccaneer is just do this, because your Lord of the Deep is doing all the work here. So as long as you're close to him, you just look for his pushes. Don't get hit by the pushes. Oh well, I got hit by that.
So what would I be doing with the Night Lord? Because the Night Lord has to be just as close as the Buccaneer.
Yeah, but only for your burst, right? And that's why you need that bind. That's why you need to rely on that bind so much. And when the bind is off, you can actually be pretty far away. You could be in the mid-range, right? You can be like just the range of his attacks most likely, and just stay a little bit further away. So this phase, the purple balls, best thing you could do is not panic. I like to keep walking, so I have started moving speed and just turn around whenever I feel like there's danger coming. But he works in the same way where he pushes like on max range, and then you could just walk around, you could just walk on him, look for the pushes, just walk the other way, and make it look really easy because I got a lot of experience. But even here, you technically don't have to dodge this. If he attacks here, you can just jump over it.
Wow. Okay.
So it just comes down to timing. My HP is getting really low, but you know, I'm a Demon Avenger. It's supposed to be. It gives me more final damage. And it comes to really reducing the elements to like, what is the hitbox? When is it going to hit there? And controlled movement, right? And same thing with Lucid, right? In the beginning, in the laser phase, you're like panicking and you're jumping all around. And that actually makes you die, more likely, right? But
yeah,
if you...
I just used the little dash thing that Buck has when you hit the directional key twice.
Yeah, exactly. But if you move, sometimes less is more, right?
That's true. You can just take one step. I guess it does the same effect.
Yeah, as long as you don't move too quickly. Because once you know the rhythm, like how quickly the laser hits, you could be like, oh, I have like another half a second every time. And it's kind of the same thing as well with the rocks and the tails in Vellum. If you're struggling with that with the DA, like the tails show up, but they don't immediately spawn. So, but if you see a tail and you jump out of the way, new tail comes, it comes in your new location. A new tail comes, it comes in your new location, and now the whole map is tails. But if you like slowly wait a little bit longer, then the tails start to stack on top of each other, and the total space that is occupied with the yellow tails is way smaller, and then we have way more space of safety where you can jump into. And maybe if you get stunned there, it's not a big deal because the tails are spawning somewhere else. And that way you don't get that like combination of effects that leads to you dying, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you going over everything and actually giving me a visual example.
Yeah, I don't know. People learn in different ways, so maybe that helps. I don't know.
Oh, thank you for sure. I'm actually gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try and do it on my Night Lord real fast, and then
all right, good
we'll
luck.
see. I'm gonna save the Buccaneer. I'm gonna save Hard Lotus on my Buccaneer for reset.
Yeah.
For a weekly reset, but
all right.
yeah. Right on. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, no worries. Same here, and wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you around.
Same there. See ya.
All right, bye-bye. Alrighty, so, well, another Buccaneer, but Buccaneer in a slightly different position. Same stat, but different level, so different content that they're going for. But, yeah, trying to reduce it back to the basics. Talking about the IED, talking about the hyperstats, a little bit about boss mechanics. And wish you the best of Buck, yeah. And, yeah, I'm playing Buccaneer a little bit now, so, but of course, you know, you couldn't really see that, but how I did that Lotus, because I was just, like, fucking around a little bit. But, yeah, you could go, you go lightning form, jump, dash through when the laser is horizontal. So how theoretically I would do it, I would stay on the bottom, use what's it called? Use the really big, well, the like 60-second iframe one first, right, to stay on the bottom. Use that to go through 2 lasers. So use it when it's roughly this position and X position. And then wait until the laser all the way came around back to the next X, or to the 2 X positions after that, so I had to pass again. Then probably use lightning form, first ball, double hop through, then use another ball, double hop through, then probably use a ball before it ends, and maybe use a lightning form dash to get through. At this point, you want to have killed it already, because if you don't kill it at that point, laser's going to speed up, it's going to be a whole shit show. But then the second iframe would already come up again, and yeah, you'd have a... Hopefully, you can just stay on the bottom the whole time, right? For every single character, that's the idea for Lotus, to just be able to stay on the bottom so you don't have to go about running around. I didn't show it, but if you're running around, you always want to do an early pass, I feel, over a late pass. So that means teleporting underneath the laser on the other diagonal side rather than waiting until the laser almost gets you and then going, because then more stuff can go wrong. You know, you can get slightly stunned, you can have a little bit of lag, and you can very easily get hit by that laser. I think it's better to teleport early and get underneath that other laser and go back to the bottom as soon as you can. Because on the bottom, you've got more time to react to the stuff that's falling. If you're on top, you have to respond immediately, and you might not have anywhere to go, right? Very important that you also activate Lord of the Deep. Yes, that was just a small thing that I forgot. But yeah, I didn't really prepare any of that, so it looked really shitty. So my apologies for that. But yeah, so if you enjoyed, hopefully you picked up 1 or 2 things that help you in your gameplay. Even if you're not a Buccaneer, a lot of these things apply to all the classes when it comes to priority of stats and, you know, where you put your things in your Legion grid, hyperstats, all that stuff. Like, that's pretty similar. You know, what characters you go for in your Legion, which link skills are useful. That's very universal for entire accounts. So take that into account no matter what you're playing. If you want one of these sessions, make sure you check the description or use the coaching command over there in the Twitch chat. There's 3 major ways that you can get these. One is by direct donation, just requesting one depending on what type of session you want. I can also do private sessions. They'll have different pricing. The second way is to request it in the store that I have, where you can basically buy it with the points that you get just from watching the stream over at twitch.tv/Scardor. If you're subscribed, you have access to that store, and you can get it at a huge discount, of course, because subscription is way cheaper, especially just for 1 month. And the third way is by leaving a comment on the video saying that you would like to win with your Discord name, and you'll have a chance to be one of the 2 people whose name I draw at the end of the month. So if anything of that appeals to you, gladly do. And I will thank you for watching. hopefully, oh yeah, and what I forgot to say last time, if you need any of the commands, any of the information, all of this is available in my Twitch chat as well. Just put an exclamation mark in front of whatever topic you're looking for, and it'll most likely pop up. And if not, use exclamation mark commands, and that has the list of all the available commands in my channel. It's a little bit over 200, so you'll probably find what you're looking for. So other than that, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you either in the next video over here on YouTube, or I'll see you live on my stream at twitch.tv/Scardor. Thanks for watching. I'll see you